So now the motor had a load on it, but not from a conventional electrical source.
Well, yeah, it had a generator coil that was driving, and under all normal and well understood conditions, a shorted generator coil loads up a motor and causes it to slow down. That's a well-known idea.
Now, once that slows down, wouldn't it also affect the amperage and heat up the wires as well?
Yes, it's well known that this condition, the motor draws more amperage, and the situation is self-destructing. And again, so you can imagine my surprise that when I shorted the wires on the generator coil, that not only did the motor not load up, it sped up and the entire system drew less energy.
That's an amazing discovery.
It was, and, I'm being rather bold in stating this here because, you're not supposed to tell your secrets because then it ruins your ability to get a patent. For many years I kept this very, very secret because it really was my discovery, and, and by publicly stating it, I'm sort of ruining my chances to have a proper patent on it.
Right now, do you own patents right now in your name, or do you put in for patents with other people?
No. The discoveries we made on the motor generator back there with Foster and Nassim in 2000-2001, there's been many others that have made similar discoveries, and I believe there are 5 different companies now that have started on all the things that I found. Many people say, well, what have you done that's so great? Why should we invest in you? And, again, I was ahead of the crowd on a lot of that. And, by no means am I saying I'm the only one that has ever discovered these things. A lot of these discoveries go into oblivion, but when I discovered them, they were new to me, and they were new to the industry and new to people. So you have to look at it that way. There were very few people saying and showing the type of thing that I was saying and showing at that time.
Well, speaking of which, Jerry, give out the name of your book again, will you please?
The title of my book is Free Energy 101, and I do now have a website on that.
Oh, great. Can you give people your website? Let me help you out. Would that be freeenergy101.webs.com?
Yes, that's it.
Jerry, in your book there, I found fascinating, from chapter to chapter, you talk about weird electricity in chapter 1, labs, inventors, inventions in 2, miracles, shamans. You've got in chapter 4, strange and exotic material. And in chapter 5, was blew me away, was a flying dump truck.
Yes, that is one of our exotic energy areas that has to do with one of the properties of dominant energy, this mysterious exotic form of energy that not even your best Stanford engineers or MIT engineers even know about. The exotic dump truck situation was a little bit different, though, than the dominant energy. It was a mechanical device known as an inertial propulsion device that was bolted to a 7-ton dump truck. The device lifted that dump truck straight up in the air, was consuming a few hundred watts of electrical power from a generator that was on the ground.
That is an amazing feat.
There's a little footnote aside on that. I tried to inform Richard Branson about that. There's several of these billionaire dudes that are starting their own space companies, and they're wanting to put people up in space with rockets. I've been stonewalled when I try to reach people like Richard Branson, when I try to reach Jeff Bezos, when I try to reach these people, I get stonewalled by their minions who have been educated at Stanford and MIT who don't think these things are possible that I'm saying.
Well, I know that there are powers that be that do not want this technology to get out there, because if this technology were to get out there, then there's no way to meter this type of energy. Is that correct?
For the most part, and, therein lies, can I kind of have a little political plug here on that point, Steve?
You got it.
Well, what I want to say to the listeners and everybody listening is it's really, really a time to put an end to the governments as we've had them. The governments do not have a right to extract money from people by every means of extortion and terror to support themselves in high living styles. Congressmen, politicians want to live the high life on the labors and backs of the people of their country, and these political people do not have the right or the authority to continue to extract their living from us, the hardworking people of the world. And at some point, I'm hoping that people will learn that these governments have to be stopped and changed, and that's what the free energy will do. is they will return the power to the people and basically put an end to these tyrannical governments that exist worldwide.
Well, there's another word in the dictionary that describes called parasites or parasitic individuals who thrive off other people or who take advantage of other people for their own selfish gain. Jerry, can you share a little information about some of the people you might have worked with and some of the inventions that you had firsthand knowledge on that you actually saw that actually did work?
Yeah, and I think I should start with my own because that's a good place to start. When you mention who I am and really what makes me different or special maybe than your average energy inventor who, quite honestly, I don't think there is such a thing as an average one. But if I may, I invented a device in 1993-94 that was a solid-state device that used different coil arrangements, magnets, crystals. I was doing something that's a little different in engineering than we're normally taught in the schools. A lot of times we're taught to engineer based on the knowledge we've been taught. I was engineering on something a little different. I was engineering a little bit on the knowledge I was taught and a little bit on my own intuition. I call that Jerry-neering. I invented this device, and quite simply, it defied everything we've been taught in engineering and science. And quite honestly, Steve, I didn't even know what it would do when I built it.
Well, the fact that you built it was definitely you had intuition as to the direction. Sometimes you get divine intervention that leads you in a certain way down a certain path. The greatest inventions are made because they're divinely led. It's the idea whose time has come.
Well, yeah, and what the listeners are wanting to hear is what I'm going to tell them now, and I'm just going to go ahead and tell them what they've been waiting to hear. Everybody wants to hear something extraordinary, something marvelous, something that will touch their heart and their soul. And this is probably this story touches my heart and soul, and I got a hunch those that listening it'll do the same. So this magical, mystical device that I had no idea even what it would do, from the very first moment that I turned it on, that I played it, I had extraordinary visions in my mind, even with my eyes closed. It was like going to a 3D holographic theater, able to see things in a three-dimensional manner just as clearly and plainly as you see things with your eyes, only with my eyes closed in what a 3D holographic mind space, call it what you will. And so that was my first introduction to this unusual device. That was followed on by being healed by the device, very bad healing condition. And again, I think people are going to want to hear just a couple minutes of what happened there, Steve.
Well, I think so, because I've had people who I've shared that story with and want to know right now, because I know people that are homeopathic doctors, so they would love to have a machine like that to offer their patients who've tried conventional medicine, conventional doctors, are sicker now than they were before they went to these doctors. A machine like this, Jerry, what would it cost you to build one? The one that you built, what kind of dollar figure did you attach to that?
Well, I'm a little bit leery to mention that because it'll sound unbelievable to people, but perhaps I had $50 into the whole thing.
This is amazing.
Go ahead and tell people. Let me tell people what happened there, because when they hear it, again, like most of my stories, it'll sound unbelievable. So why don't I go ahead and describe for a minute or two what happened there, Steve?
You've got the floor.
Well, I was lying down. The way that I would use the device is I would plug in spiritual music that touches the heart and the soul. The device was usually about 2 feet away from me. I did not touch anything. Nothing touched me. I had headphones on. The device was just a little energy manifester, a little device that somehow this dominant energy collected in, and this was my first experience with the dominant energy, this unusual energy that defies all the known laws of science and physics that we have been taught. I lay there. Within less than a minute, I literally felt this energy, this unusual energy, this extraordinary energy coming out of the device, going into my body, going to my throat. It was a hot, warm energy going to my throat, which is where I had the condition. I was unable to speak. I was extremely ill. And then within less than a minute, that unusual, hot, warm energy that entered my body from this device, and I hope people are on the edge of their seats, because you can imagine as I was laying there, not only was I on the edge of my seat, I was on the edge of my life, experiencing something that quite honestly is something right out of a science fiction novel. So I lay there having just felt this hot, warm energy come down the headphone wires, go into my right ear, go into the middle of my head, make a right angle turn, go down to my throat, and stop, where it stayed for about 1 minute and completely and totally healed my throat in all ways. I was unable to speak a minute prior. A minute later, my voice returned perfectly, and I was completely and totally healed.
Now, this energy that you experience in your throat area, if that energy force was applied to another area, let's say your heart, your back, your legs, your eyesight, could it also heal things such as those?
Well, I would say the answer is yes. This was my introduction to this energy, my personal experience with this energy that then would allow me to have a position that very few other people in engineering and science who would be extremely envious of that position. This position gave me a position of what I call knowing. You know, people go around and say they believe this, they believe that. Oh, I believe. Well, this is not about believing, and I really want to make this clear to people. You can believe all day long, and it doesn't make anything true or false. It's a belief. I was now in a position of knowing that this energy existed, knowing that it was what it was capable of. I was in quite a bit of a pickle because, you know, when you get to where you know something, and this, again, is what we are calling an aspect of the dominant energy.
That is an interesting revelation. Jerry, if this technology is a reality, and I don't doubt it because I know you personally, what do we, the American people, need to do to be able to enjoy the benefits of this new technology?
Well, I'd say the biggest crime that people do towards new inventions and new ideas is that they're needlessly pathologically skeptical. They're needlessly pathologically negative. A lot of people, and in fact even our investor in Hawaii, Doug Truxell, went to the world's smartest man, who supposedly is Stephen Hawking, and asked him what he thought about free energy, and I believe Stephen was quoted as saying it's not possible. And for that reason, people like Doug and other rich people refuse to invest a dime or take interest in these extraordinary things because some so-called educated smart person says that he thinks it's not possible or it's not possible, when in fact these so-called educated smart people quite simply don't even have a clue.
And this is only based on his perception. You know, going forward, Jerry, what does Jerry Thomas, the scientist, the inventor, need to do to bring this technology to the world?
I think I have an enviable position in the sense that I know a lot of these things really are true. When I later on met the inventor in Ohio who was working with the dominant energy, you know, what people have to realize why I wrote the book is because I'd already come from a place of knowing it was true. And so I had a real tough time meeting anyone that actually was working with this energy and knew that it was true. And even today, 2012, people are only beginning to understand the dominant. And my book, I believe, is the first place that's actually been documented, that it's actually been talked about. People saying and showing the type of thing that I was saying and showing at that time.
Well, speaking of which, Jerry, give out the name of your book again, will you please?
The title of my book is Free Energy 101, and I do now have a website on that.
Oh, great. Can you give people your website? Let me help you out. Would that be freeenergy101.webs.com?
Yes, that's it.
Jerry, in your book there, I found fascinating from so now the motor had a load on it, but not from a conventional electrical source.
Well, yeah, it had a generator coil that was driving, and under all normal and well-understood conditions, a shorted generator coil loads up a motor and causes it to slow down. That's a well-known idea.
Now, once that slows down, wouldn't it also affect the amperage and heat up the wires as well?
Yes, it's well known that this condition, the motor draws more amperage, and the situation is self-destructing. And again, so you can imagine my surprise that when I shorted the wires on the generator coil, that not only did the motor not load up, it sped up and the entire system drew less energy.
That's an amazing discovery.
It was, and I'm being rather bold in stating this here because you're not supposed to tell your secrets because then it ruins your ability to get a patent. For many years, 5 different companies now that have started on all the things that I found. Many people say, well, what have you done that's so great? Why should we invest in you? And again, I was ahead of the crowd on a lot of that. And by no means am I saying I'm the only one that has ever discovered these things. A lot of these discoveries go into oblivion, but when I discovered them, they were new to me and they were new to the industry and new to people. So you have to look at it that way. There were very few because I kept this very, very secret because it really was my discovery, and and by publicly stating it, I'm sort of ruining my chances to have a proper patent on it.
Right now, do you own patents right now in your name, or do you put in for patents with other people?
No. The discoveries we made on the motor generator back there with Foster and Nassim in 2000, 2001, there's been many others that have made similar discoveries, and I believe there